Welcome to Let's Talk Rubbish. I'm Scrapboy here on Gumbunja Country, joined by a couple of very special guests on our stream this morning. This is Rachel Rothwell from Oz Harvest. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well. We also have on the line from Turrbal and Yagara Country up in Brisbane, Costa the Garden Gnome. Good morning, Costa.
Good morning, Scrapboy. Hello, Rachel.
Good morning, Costa. Looking fabulous there.
So, Rachel, we're here for the Waste 2021 conference. Costa's up in Brisbane for the International Composting Awareness Week kickoff. We'd love to get to know you before we get into the nitty-gritty of all things food waste. What was the natural world like for you when you were growing up as a kid?
Well, I grew up in the sunny, leafy North Shore of Sydney, so life was pretty idyllic, really. It was very nice. There wasn't a lot of thought about waste, but we did have a huge composting system in my back garden from when I was very small. So I was lucky enough to think that that was normal, and that was something that really had to happen all through my life.
So you started composting from a very young age. So the next question is, what do you do now as an adult to reconnect with nature and remember that we are a part of the natural ecosystem of the world?
Yeah, it's certainly not enough. Living in inner Sydney, it's really quite challenging to reconnect with nature. I've just noticed as I drive over the Cooks River every morning on my way to dropping kids at school and work and all the other things that we keep doing day in and day out, that I was managing to drive across the Cooks River and noticing that the tides were going up and thinking about how that was changing every day and just being aware of what was going on around me in that natural system that was sitting there, this tiny little bit of nature that was doing its own thing amongst the enormity of the human world that we've created in metropolitan Australia.
Interesting, the connection between water and tides and the moon. We are all connected a bit like right now across a number of different spaces. Costa, I'm going to throw to you because I know composting is something that you're very passionate about. And Rachel's working with Oz Harvest here at the Waste Conference talking about education and food waste in schools.
That's right.
Yes, Scrapboy. Compost is very near and dear to my heart, and I think when it comes to any given calendar year, you will find me on my Mount Everest at the moment. International Composting Awareness Week is my peak. I am on an absolute high because everything about this week is exactly what the title says. It's about awareness. It is about each and every one of us, and whether that's Rachel and the work that she's doing through Oz Harvest, whether it's up here with ICAW, International Composting Awareness Week, whether it's councils that are doing FOGO or school gardens that are creating opportunities to establish worm farms and compost bins. Each and every one of us all but compost and the composting process in different ways. And even as you said, Rachel, growing up with that awareness, you suddenly realise that it's part of your DNA, and those habits that you've had from childhood become who you are, and they become your culture. So everything that we do affects those around us, and that's why Compost Awareness Week is so important, because we can share that awareness.
Yeah, Costa, you're right. Rachel, is that essentially what Oz Harvest is up to and what you're presenting here at the conference? Is it about connecting early with kids in schools to understand food waste and the impact that has on the broader environment?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to really get kids having the skills and the knowledge and the understanding around food, where their food comes from, valuing their food, because I think there's a huge disconnect with especially kids in metropolitan areas in Australia, that they don't understand enough about the food system, the whole bigger system, about where it's come from, all the work that's gone into producing it, so they don't value it. They don't understand it and they don't value it, and then they don't think about what happens when we throw it out. So what we're really trying to do within Oz Harvest is to give kids and start at that school age when they're really starting to make decisions for themselves around food, around what they're eating and how they're eating it and what they choose to eat and what they go, you know what, that's not good enough. But, oh no, actually, I really like banana smoothies. That black banana, I can't eat it, I can't put it in the lunchbox, but I could turn it into a smoothie for breakfast. So it's still getting eaten and it's not getting thrown away. And that's a hugely important part of what we can do, giving kids skills and understanding so that they can keep doing that throughout their whole lives.
We love worms too, Glenda. Thanks for jumping on the stream. So for those people watching at home or at work now, what's the history of Oz Harvest? How did Oz Harvest come into existence? What was the impetus behind that?
So Oz Harvest is founded by the amazing Ronnie Khan. Ronnie is the most... I can't think of the words today. She is the most inspiring woman. She has come from a background of events and looking after corporate events in the catering side of corporate events. And she was seeing that in these corporate events, there was huge amounts of food going to waste. And then she was also seeing that there are people living on the streets. There is not enough food around for everybody and it's not being shared out equally. So what Ronnie started 16 years ago with a plan and a van was a system, I guess a middleman that is taking food from food producers, so things like supermarkets, restaurants, caterers, even farmers, and this is good food. It's not waste, it's not scraps, it's good food that can and still should be eaten, and it's providing that food to people in need, vulnerable people in the community. And over the last year or so, Oz Harvest has grown hugely, supporting the growing numbers of people in need and vulnerable people in our community who are what we call food insecure.
Is there a number that you can share with us to indicate how much food Oz Harvest has been able to redirect from somewhere like landfill over the last 15, 16 years? Is there a number? It'd be staggeringly large, I'd imagine.
I'm terrible at numbers. One of the numbers that we usually come out with is we've got about 200 vans on the road. Each one of those vans collects about a tonne of food every day and redirects it, giving it to the charities and the people who are in need.
Okay.
So if you can think about that.
On the fly, 200 vans, 1 tonne, that's 200 tonnes a day by 365 days by 16 years. That's absolutely mind-boggling, isn't it, Costa? It's like literally you're on the mountain of composting Everest in Brisbane and we're talking about the mountain of food reuse here.
Yeah, and I think Scrapboy and what you're saying there, Rachel, is that the key thing in any of this awareness that we try and build is the data, and to have that data that is collected at Oz Harvest, that's incredibly powerful because we need data to tell stories. And you don't need a massive amount, but just that quick calculation that you did there, Scrapboy, it gives people an idea of just, and that's the food just that you guys got. There's a whole lot that's still going through the net and still ending up in landfill. And when you think about that, it makes your number seem small as well. So there's so much opportunity to take data, to use data, to create stories and drive a narrative that hooks people and engages them and takes that awareness into action. So it's really enthusing to hear those figures and then to be able to take them to that next stage of creating action.
So, Rachel, FEAST, that's an acronym. It obviously means a big meal that you'd share with your friends or your family, but what is the acronym FEAST that Oz Harvest uses for this particular project?
So the letters FEAST are Food, Education and Sustainability Training. So it's a teacher-driven, teacher-led program. So we're training the teachers to be able to provide that food and sustainability education to their students. And it's so important that that happens in a classroom, that our teachers are empowered, that our teachers have that knowledge and understanding of teaching some of these basic life skills around cooking, around composting and around healthy eating, and that they're being given these opportunities. And we're really lucky at Oz Harvest that we're able able to provide opportunities, training for teachers, all the resources, plus some fantastic equipment that we provide into classrooms, what we call our kitchen kits and fry pan sets, so they can cook in a primary school classroom, which is a whole new undertaking for teachers, but it's something that the students just love doing. They feel really empowered. It gives them this competence, this core competence that everybody needs as a life skill to be able to look at whatever's there, what they've been growing in the school garden, and go, actually, I know how to cook that now. I can chop it up and put it into a fritter, and I can make that delicious and easy and something that is useful and healthy in my diet.
So Karen and Jay are just sharing some stories, I got my words twisted, about how having an experience in the country has helped inform them. If you're on the live stream now, we'd love to hear a bit about what you're doing in your backyards to help reduce food waste, and if you've got composting or worms, let us know on the live stream now. I'd like to ask, what's been the biggest challenge that OzHarvest has had to overcome with this project? Has there been resistance? Is there a message that's cut through better than others? What have you found worked and what hasn't worked?
I think one of the challenges in working in any form in education and working in schools is that teachers are so overworked. They're so time poor. They really want to be able to do their best, but they have so many drivers and so many requirements put on them in the classroom that they find it really challenging to be able to do what they want to do and want to do best, which is really engaging, exciting teaching and learning.
Okay. So, Costa, have you got anything that you'd like to share with us about, we're talking about food and education in classrooms and compost. What's happening up there for ICAW? Is there anything that ties into this conversation that you'll be talking about today?
Yeah, well, just off what Rachel was saying there, it's really critical, the work that you're doing and that school gardens and that thread of cooking and food going into schools, because I mean, particularly primary school and then high school, I mean, there's only a certain window of time at home and there's many hours spent at school, and when that message and those connections continue to be threaded across the day, then those habits become the norm. They become not just the family culture but the school culture and the community culture. Up here today, at the launch of International Composting Awareness Week, the theme is the circular economy. So it's really trying to tie together the fact that it's not just about the waste, it's then about, well, what happens to those waste materials? Because we can't look at it as an isolated thing and say, well, yes, I get a green star because I'm separating all of my recyclables. But if those recyclables aren't being used, if they aren't being specified, for example, as an alternative material to extracting more things out of the ground, well, then we're participating, but we're not solving. So the people doing the recycling are doing their bit, but then there's other people within the community that can do their bit and whether that's a council specifier or a state government specifier saying, I want recycled content in the materials that we use to go about our business. So the theme for this year's Composting Awareness Week is how we can bring all the players in, how we can say, right, what can a local council ordinance person bring in to people applying for a DA for a cafe so that you can eliminate single-use plastics as part of a DA. And then it's not up to community groups to do all that heavy lifting to clean up the straws and the little the little soya fish floating down rivers because someone's used those to put soya sauce on. Like there's ways that each and every one of us in our industries, in our professions, in our community groups and NGOs, and that's where it's really positive this year that we're talking circular economy and we're saying, hey, this is everybody's opportunity to close these loops and really act on it, because it's the action that we need.
It's really true, Costa. I think the tide has turned and we're all a part of creating a better and a different story for a climate safe planet. A lot of feedback on the stream. People are very keen in their parts of the world to see developments. We've heard from Megan that in Western Australia green bins are coming to curbside collection, which is very exciting. We've also had some feedback about worms being the engineers of the garden, Costa. That's certainly a belief that I know you share. And a question too from Megan about how she can get more information, which is probably a really good point to turn back to how people can engage with OzHarvest. What's the best way to communicate with your organisation, and if they're interested in participating, how can they get involved?
It's probably best to jump on our website, which is ozharvest.org, nice easy one, and have a click around. There's lots of opportunities to work with OzHarvest, whether you're a food producer and you'd like to donate, whether you're a charity and you'd like to receive food relief, if you're an education organisation and you'd like to take part in our feast program or any of our other community and other education programs, or if you're a person at home and you'd just like to help to reduce the amount of food waste that you're creating at home, you can join our Fight Food Waste movement. So jump on the website.
Plenty that you can do. And there you go, Megan. You can actually be involved as a homeschooling parent in Western Australia. Just get in contact with Rachel and the team. We have a few minutes left. It's an exciting conference. Costa, you've obviously got lots going on up at Brisbane. What's the one thing that really excites you? We'll start with Rachel because she's here. What's the one thing that excites you about the waste and sustainability world at the moment? What's the idea that's really got you excited?
I'm really love the fact that they are talking about this circular economy, about inputs coming at all levels and how things can really start to go in a cycle. For so long, our thoughts about waste have been very linear, and we really, really need to change the paradigm in how we think about waste. It can't be about waste, and the talk that I've just come out of is really starting to recognise, shows that the government across the country is really starting to recognise that we're talking about resources and we're keeping these resources in circulation in the economy, and I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Costa, what's the thing that you're most excited about? It's probably compost related because you're part of the compost conversation there in ICAW.
Yeah, look, Scrapboy and Rach, I think one of the things, speaking with some of the organisations up here and the work that ICAW is doing, getting the composted material from FOGO bins and green bins back out into the community. And what I like about it is, and as Amanda said, getting that awareness to the community that the work they're doing, so all that separation, telling that story so that people know that it's going to improve their sports fields, it's going to improve the gardens, it's going to improve street trees to cool our cities. But here's one that is most exciting and most critical. These mediums, this compost medium, it's a living, breathing organism that filters. And when we can use compost in filtration, in water filtration, so that the concept of the rain garden, where all our stormwater filters through a compost medium, where it gets stripped of all, not just the things we see, because it's fine to have on every stormwater outlet a basket that catches the plastic bottles and the straws and all those things, but it's all the other things, all the micro pieces of rubber and metal from tires, the oils and the pollutants, all of those things. When we can start to use this recycled material as a filter to clean our beaches, to clean our lakes, our rivers, our waterways, that's where we really can see it then as our food scraps. They go from our house into compost and then into the drain at the end of our street to protect our waterways. When we protect our waterways, we protect our oceans. When we protect our oceans, they're sequestering carbon, so our seaweed will grow and be the underwater forests and underwater meadows that are doing so much work. So yeah, that work in using the composting material to create filters, to turn wastewater into good water again. That to me is the most exciting thing.
It is exciting. I'm excited, Costa, just listening to you talk about the connection that all has with our big, beautiful planet. Maz made a really interesting comment while we were talking about reframing what is food waste as well. We obviously talk about looking at food and seeing it as a resource, but so much of the food that we eat may not look perfect, but it in fact is still cram-packed full of flavour and the nutrients. So that's a great takeaway, Maz, that everyone can put into action in their own homes and their own kitchens, is that if that banana doesn't look perfect, it probably still tastes just the same, and it shouldn't go to a compost bin. We should eat it and then just put the skin into the compost bin. That's a pretty simple, practical take-home.
Absolutely. And just getting some ideas and some skills about how you can use things that might be just past their prime to eat fresh. But there are still so many ways that these things can get eaten, so that, yes, it's really important to be putting the scraps in the compost, but let's try and eat the good bits of food first.
Great. Well, Costa, we're very excited that you're having fun talking compost in Brisbane on Yagara and Turrbal country. We're here on Gumbunja country talking rubbish. Rachel Rothwell from Oz Harvest, thank you so much for everything you and the team do right across the country, helping to make our planet a better place for everyone. Costa, thanks for keeping the compost conversation going up there in sunny Queensland. We're looking forward to talking more rubbish here, and if you've got questions, throw them onto the online platform here on the stream. Get in touch with Oz Harvest, and don't forget, there'll be plenty more conversation about rubbish, where that came from. We'll see you soon, Costa. Yes, Costa. I think we might have just had you drop off as you've moved position. We can.
It's not quite so sunny. It's pouring up here in Brisbane.
It is, isn't it? I should have guessed that's why you were undercover.
Pouring with rain up here.
And this is the golf course that you were talking about earlier that's been earmarked to be redeveloped into a... Don't get those goggles wet, Costa. You don't have your wipers on. Well, thanks everyone for participating in our conversation about how we can redirect...
Exactly.
No, jump in, Costa. I was just saying to everyone that may not have heard about the redevelopment of the golf course up there in Brisbane, which we just saw in the background.
Yeah, it's being developed as an urban agriculture hub and a real community open green space. And you know, what an incredible opportunity. It's very rare that you get this space well, not gifted but returned as open space in a big city. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this project unfolds, and I'm sure we'll be back here at future Compost Awareness Weeks looking at the project as it progresses.
Costa, a little personal challenge from Scrapboy to you. Golf courses have holes for balls, right? You know how you normally put your organic waste in your reusable cup and you take it with you? I challenge you to do a sneaky, pop your organic waste into those cups on the golf course. It can just be like a little in-ground compost bin. The worms will come up and eat it from in there, if you think it'd work. It's not sanctioned, obviously, but just an idea. It's what it's all about here at Waste 2021 and ICAW, talking about new ways to compost food waste in the ground of a golf course.
Your innovative thinking never ceases to inspire.
Never ceases to amaze. Well, thanks so much, Costa. Thanks again, Rachel. I should also give a big shout out to Reverse Garbage. Yes. I believe you picked up this incredible necklace. What's it made out of?
This beautiful necklace is made out of the arms of glasses, which were samples that were being left at Reverse Garbage in Sydney a few years ago, and very cleverly stuck on a shoelace and turned into a beautiful bit of jewellery. So it's always worth hanging on to some of those weird bits and pieces and seeing what you can do with them so you don't throw them in the bin.
Amazing, isn't it? A shift in outlook and changing our position on things can tell a different story. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you soon for more Talking Rubbish.